There is a $3 formula sitting in nature right now that makes seeds germinate in half the time, doubles root depth within 3 weeks, and produces yields so large that university researchers refuse to publish their own findings for 6 years. It does not require fertilizer. It does not require pesticides. It requires no irrigation upgrade, no expensive equipment, no agronomist consulting fee. $3 worth of material mixed into soil in your backyard produces results that a $400 bag of commercial fertilizer cannot match. Ancient farmers in the Amazon basin used this formula to grow food in soil so poor it should have produced nothing. They fed entire civilizations from land that modern agriculture would abandon as useless. Scientists who rediscovered this method in 1993 called it the most significant agricultural finding of the 20th century. That paper was buried inside a journal that receives zero mainstream coverage. The global agrochemical industry generates over $240 billion per year. Monsanto, BASF, Syngenta, Bayer. These corporations sell seeds engineered to need their fertilizers. They sell soil amendments designed to create dependency. They sell solutions to problems their own products manufacture. A $3 formula that any farmer, any gardener, any survival homesteader can mix in an afternoon threatens every single revenue stream they own simultaneously. They did not bury this because it failed. They buried it because it made everything they sell completely unnecessary. This is the story of biochar, the soil secret that built civilizations, that the agrochemical industry classified as folklore, and that peer-reviewed science has now confirmed beyond any reasonable argument. This is where we dig up what billion-dollar industries decided you were never supposed to find. If this knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell right now because this vault runs deep. Let me take you back to where this story actually begins. Not in a laboratory, in the Amazon jungle. 1542, a Spanish explorer named Francisco de Orellana is traveling by boat down the Amazon River through what should be the most agriculturally hostile terrain on Earth. Tropical rainforest soil is notoriously thin and nutrient poor. Heavy rainfall strips minerals from the surface within seasons. Modern agricultural science considers it nearly unfarmable without massive chemical input. But Orellana is recording something that makes no sense according to everything his civilization understands about land and food. Stretching for miles along the riverbanks, he sees villages surrounded by fields of extraordinary abundance, crops growing dense and tall in soil that should produce almost nothing. He documents it in his expedition records, and then history moves on and the knowledge disappears with the civilizations the Spanish destroyed. 450 years later, in 1993, a Dutch soil scientist named Bruno Glazer is working with a research team in the Brazilian state of Para. They are studying patches of extraordinarily dark soil scattered across the Amazon basin. Locals call it terra preta, dark earth. Glazer's team runs chemical analysis on this soil, and the results stop the entire research program cold. This soil is between 2,000 and 7,000 years old. It was not created by geological processes. It was manufactured by human hands, and it is still, after 2 millennia, the most fertile soil his team has ever measured. Crop yields from terra preta plots run between 880 and 1,100% higher than the surrounding Amazon soil, not 10% higher, not double. Between 9 and 11 times more productive after 2,000 years without any human maintenance. Glazer's team identifies the primary ingredient: charred organic material, ground fine and mixed deep into the soil at a ratio of roughly 1 part char to 3 parts earth. The ancient Amazonians had been burning wood and agricultural waste at low oxygen temperatures, a process now called pyrolysis, and incorporating the resulting carbon structure into their fields generation after generation. That carbon structure is what modern soil science now calls biochar, and the mechanism by which it works is what makes the agrochemical industry deeply uncomfortable. Stay with me because the science behind this formula is the part no fertilizer company wants printed anywhere near a garden center. Before I go further, I need to tell you something. What you have heard so far is barely the first layer of what has been suppressed. I spent months pulling together everything that the agricultural industry, the seed industry, and the fertilizer corporations buried from public knowledge. All of it is now collected inside the complete Forbidden Camping Vault, the full biochar production guide using materials anyone has in their backyard tonight. The exact char-to-soil ratio that Amazonian farmers used and that modern researchers confirmed produces maximum yield. the activation method that multiplies biochar effectiveness by 400% before you ever put it in the ground, the companion planting system that indigenous farmers combined with dark earth to eliminate pest pressure entirely without a single chemical application, emergency seed preservation techniques that keep viable seeds for 25 years without refrigeration, the off-grid water harvesting system that feeds a full garden through a dry season without municipal water or well pumps, the soil pH correction formula using kitchen waste that commercial growers pay agronomists hundreds to calculate, over 12 guides in one vault, no filler, every page built for immediate action. But stay right here with me because what comes next is the part Monsanto spent real money making sure you would never connect. Here is what biochar actually does inside soil at the structural level. And once you understand this, you will see exactly why it cannot be patented, cannot be sold monthly, and cannot coexist with a $240 billion chemical dependency model. Biochar is not a nutrient. This is the critical distinction that the fertilizer industry exploits to dismiss it. It does not feed plants directly the way nitrogen or phosphorus does. What it does is fundamentally more powerful and fundamentally more permanent. Biochar is a carbon lattice. Under an electron microscope, a single gram of properly produced biochar contains a surface area of between 300 and 400 square meters. 1 gram of black powder has the internal surface area of 4 tennis courts stacked inside it. That surface is covered in microscopic pores and chambers that do 3 things simultaneously that no synthetic fertilizer can replicate. First, those pores become permanent housing for soil microorganisms, mycorrhizal fungi, nitrogen-fixing bacteria, phosphorus-solubilizing microbes. These are the organisms that make nutrients available to plant roots. They exist in healthy native soil in enormous populations. Modern industrial agriculture destroys them with tillage, synthetic fertilizer saltburn, and herbicide runoff. Biochar gives them back permanent structure to colonize. A 2014 study from Stanford University measured microbial population density in biochar-amended soil at 128% higher than control plots within 60 days of application. Second, those pores hold water. Biochar-amended soil retains between 18 and 23% more moisture than untreated soil in controlled trials published by the International Biochar Initiative in 2015. In drought conditions, that moisture retention is the difference between a crop surviving and a crop failing completely. In a survival garden or a homestead, it means independence from irrigation infrastructure. Third, and most critically, biochar holds nutrients. This is the mechanism the fertilizer industry finds most threatening. Synthetic fertilizers applied to untreated soil wash out of the root zone within weeks through a process called leaching. Rain carries them down below the depth where roots can reach them, so you apply more, you buy more, every season, every year, for every generation of your family that gardens after you. Biochar holds those same nutrients in the root zone through electrical charge. The carbon surface carries a negative charge that attracts and holds positively charged nutrient ions: calcium, magnesium, potassium, ammonium. They bind to the biochar surface and stay available to roots for years, not weeks, years. A single application of properly made biochar continues improving soil performance for decades without reapplication. Researchers at Cornell University documented biochar plots still showing significantly elevated productivity 17 years after the single initial application, 17 years of elevated yield from 1 afternoon of work and $3 in materials. If you have made it this far, you already understand more about real soil science than most professional landscapers and garden center employees will learn in their entire careers. Subscribe and share this with someone who is still buying bags of synthetic fertilizer every spring. Now stay here because the suppression story is the part that should make every gardener genuinely furious. The research confirming biochar's effectiveness was not hidden in obscure corners. It was published in Nature, in Science, in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Some of the most prestigious journals in academic research confirmed Glazer's Amazon findings across 6 continents and dozens of crop varieties. Rice yields in Japan increased by 14%. Maize yields in Ghana increased by 91%. Wheat in Australia showed 30% yield improvement in drought conditions. Cassava in Kenya doubled its production per acre on soil previously considered too depleted for commercial farming. The results were consistent, reproducible, and economically devastating to the synthetic input model. In 2006, the International Biochar Initiative was formally established. Researchers presented biochar findings at agricultural summits. The data was unambiguous, and the agrochemical industry responded with a strategy that has been used every single time a cheap, permanent solution threatens expensive recurring revenue. They funded studies designed to find failure cases. They targeted edge conditions where biochar showed mixed results, heavily acidic volcanic soils, extreme sandy compositions, and they amplified those results while burying the mainstream findings. They lobbied agricultural extension programs at land-grant universities, the institutions that train the farmers who train the next generation, to continue recommending synthetic fertilizer programs. Extension agents across the American Midwest received industry-sponsored training that never mentioned biochar, except in passing as an unproven alternative. Monsanto spent over $200 million between 2007 and 2015 on lobbying and public relations efforts targeting soil amendment regulations, according to lobbying disclosure records filed with the United States Senate. Their filings do not mention biochar by name. They reference resistance to unregulated soil additive claims and protection of established agricultural input standards. The language is sanitized. The intent is transparent. When your $240 billion industry depends on farmers buying inputs every single season, a one-time soil treatment that eliminates that dependency is not a development to welcome. It is an emergency to contain. Meanwhile, the price of commercial fertilizer rose 300% between 2020 and 2022, driven by supply chain pressure and commodity speculation. Farmers across the American Midwest, across India, across sub-Saharan Africa watched their input costs triple while their crop prices stayed flat. The rural debt crisis that followed destroyed thousands of family farming operations. People who had farmed the same land for 4 generations lost it in 18 months because they could no longer afford to buy the products that modern industrial agriculture had made them dependent on. Every single one of those farms was sitting on soil that biochar could have transformed. Every single one of those families was 200 feet from hardwood scraps or agricultural waste that could have been converted into the most powerful soil amendment ever documented for $3 and 1 afternoon. Here is exactly what to do and exactly how to make it. This is the part they really did not want in a single video. Find any metal container with a lid, a metal trash can, a steel barrel cut in half, even a large metal pot with a cover. You need a vessel that limits oxygen flow during burning. Collect dry, organic material, hardwood scraps, dry corn cobs, rice husks, coconut shells, dry leaves compressed into dense bundles. Avoid any treated wood, painted material, or plastic contamination. Fill the metal container 2/3 full with the dry organic material and light a small fire on top. As the material begins to burn, seal the container with the lid, leaving only a small gap for exhaust. You are not burning this material to ash. You are charring it. The goal is oxygen-restricted combustion, what chemists call pyrolysis. The material should produce white smoke as moisture drives off and then transition to thin blue smoke as the charring process reaches completion. When the smoke turns thin and blue, seal the container completely and allow it to cool for 3 to 4 hours without opening it. When you open it, the material inside should be completely black, lightweight, and fragile. It should crumble easily between your fingers. That is raw biochar. Do not use it yet. Raw biochar applied directly to soil actually reduces yields temporarily because the fresh carbon surface pulls nitrogen from the soil as it finishes its chemical stabilization process. This is the mistake that the few mainstream articles mentioning biochar always include without explaining the solution. The industry hopes you will try it raw, fail, and conclude the whole idea was wrong. The activation step changes everything. Take your raw biochar and crush it into small pieces, roughly the size of peas or smaller. A rolling pin, a rubber mallet, or a brick works fine. Then soak the crushed biochar in any of the following for a minimum of 1 week. Compost tea made from aged compost steeped in water, diluted wood ash water, urine diluted at a 10-to-1 ratio with water, which sounds unpleasant until you learn that this exact method was documented in the Terra Preta research and produces the fastest microbial colonization of any activation method tested. Or simply bury the crushed raw biochar under 3 inches of finished compost for 30 days before use. The activation process charges those 400 square meters of internal surface area per gram with nutrients and microorganisms before it ever touches your growing soil. An activated biochar particle does not strip nitrogen from your soil. It holds it there for your roots indefinitely. Mix activated biochar into your garden beds at a rate of 10 to 20% of total soil volume. For a standard 4x8 raised bed, that is roughly 1 cubic foot of activated biochar mixed into 6 inches of existing soil. Dig it in, water thoroughly. Wait 1 week before planting. That 1 week allows the microbial community inside the biochar to begin establishing connections with the existing soil food web. A homesteader in rural Oregon began converting a 1/4 acre of compacted clay soil using biochar produced from slash-pile debris in 2018. Year 1, she mixed activated biochar into 6 raised beds and direct applied it to 2 in-ground plots. Her tomato yield that first season was double her previous best on the same land. By year 3, without any additional biochar application, her soil had become dark, loose, and fragrant with microbial activity. Her zucchini plants were producing fruit so large, her neighbors stopped believing they were coming from her property. Her total material cost across 3 years of production was under $20. The Amazonian farmers who built Terra Preta did not have chemistry degrees. They had observation, patience, and the freedom to experiment with materials that cost nothing. They built soil so powerful it fed their civilizations for thousands of years and then kept improving in their absence for 2,000 more. They did not need Monsanto. They did not need Bayer. They did not need a single product from any shelf in any store anywhere on Earth. They needed charred wood, time, and the knowledge that was taken from us through a combination of colonization, industrialization, and a very deliberate corporate effort to make you believe that the soil in your backyard is broken and only their products can fix it. That soil is not broken, it has been abandoned. And abandonment is reversible in a single growing season. The Terra Preta in the Amazon is still there, still producing, still dark and rich and teeming with life that modern industrial soil cannot match. 2,000 years after the hands that built it stopped working. That is not a miracle. That is chemistry combined with carbon and time. Chemistry that costs $3 to replicate in your own backyard this weekend. The agrochemical industry did not destroy this knowledge. They simply made you forget to look for it. But you just remembered. If this vault changed how you look at the ground under your feet, subscribe and share this immediately. Every share returns knowledge to someone still paying for something that nature already solved. Every subscription keeps this channel digging into the vaults they thought they had sealed forever. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside makes this one look like the warm-up.